What's up everyone? Welcome back. I know that I said I wanted to get this video out days ago. Unfortunately, some things just got in the way and now I'm running a bit behind. I do apologize for that. However, I don't think we are really in any kind of a hurry, are we? I mean, I know that quite a few people out there are actually expecting Content Patch 2 to release in September, but that may not be the actual case. If there is one thing I have learned from following this project, it is that you really need to pay attention to the way the news updates are worded. For example, the update that we got not too long ago said that Wolcen will give us more news about the release of Content Patch 2 in September. They are not necessarily going to release the actual patch in September unless it is actually ready. They are only going to give us a news update, which then should include an actual release date. I have seen more and more people asking about it, wondering when in September they are going to release the patch, so I just wanted to reiterate for those who don't know that Content Patch 2 is not necessarily going to release in September, but if everything goes okay, then we will get the actual release date for Content Patch 2 in September. We don't know exactly when in September they will release that news update, so we still have at least a few weeks left. I also saw that Callie, the community manager, posted a comment in Discord about how there aren't really any hotfixes planned between now and Content Patch 2. So it sounds like we are stuck with the current build until then. And I mean, they could always surprise us and drop one, you never know, but it just doesn't sound like they are planning to. So while we wait patiently for the release of Content Patch 2, we're going to take a look at putting together a dual dagger build, a build that is using the purple unique Genesis helmet to experiment with the Shadow Novas that it is capable of casting. When I started this build, it was primarily focused on that aspect, applying enough stacks of weakness to cast a Shadow Nova. However, after playing around with it for a bit and with the skill tree, it has evolved into something else entirely, and now that purple unique Genesis helmet is not actually a required piece, it is just a good fun piece. Now, if you have seen any of my other builds recently, then you may have noticed that just about every single one of them is a pure DPS character that is unfortunately suffering from low life. Some of them are even wearing gear that gives force shield, even though I keep saying that force shield is pretty horrible right now. I have been making them that way on purpose, assuming that I was going to get that Smile of the Searing Song unique chest piece. That chest piece converts force shield to health and it would help out tremendously with survivability. I just haven't been able to get my hands on one yet. But then I decided to try this build, and I now realize that having that chest piece would definitely help out with survivability. However, it also makes your attacks always apply weakness at the cost of your attacks only being able to apply weakness. That would actually hurt what this particular build has evolved into a lot, as we do not have a very high average damage until after we kill an enemy that is afflicted with ailments. So being able to only apply weakness would cut our damage boost in half, because killing an enemy afflicted with ailments gives you a temporary damage boost. 15% damage for each ailment stack on that enemy, up to 5 stacks per damage type. So if I understand this correctly, which I probably don't, but shh, don't tell anyone, then applying 5 stacks of weakness to an enemy, which this build can do, will grant your character a 75% damage boost. Applying 5 stacks of a different damage type, like Shaded for example, which this build can also do, will grant your character another 75% damage boost. So if you apply those 5 stacks of weakness and 5 stacks of Shaded at the same time and then kill that enemy, you should now be receiving a 150% damage boost. I'm not 100% sure that it is working correctly, seeing as how my character will go from about 6,500 average damage up to, well, this is a screenshot of 23, but 25,000 is the highest that I have seen it go up to, and if you watch the average damage very closely, you will see it hit 25 for a split second. It is very sporadic, constantly fluctuating, so just try to stay on the move, and after killing a group, get to the next one as quickly as you can. Now, obviously going into a boss fight fresh, or after a death or something, is going to leave you fighting the boss without your damage boost. If no adds are being spawned for you to kill, then just dodge the boss's attacks, trying to always stay behind them and never getting hit, and then just remember to use Mark of Impurity, the curse, to make the bosses more vulnerable. Alright, so I am going all agility this time for that higher attack speed. I want to be able to apply those ailments as fast as possible to get that damage boost up as fast as possible, but because I have not invested into toughness at all, I am left with low life and needing to dodge a lot, which I personally like, to be honest. However, you do not need to do this. That is one of the great things about this game right now, that you do not have to do anything. You do it your way, and then just adjust your playstyle to work with the build. For example, if you have have low life, that is perfectly fine as long as you are good at dodging and don't get hit very often. If you have a ton of life, leaving you with low damage, that is also perfectly fine. You just gotta have a little more patience and don't mind the fights taking 5 minutes. I personally like going with the higher damage because when you run into those bosses with ridiculous regen, if your damage is too low, they will literally be impossible to kill. They will regen their health faster than you can damage them. So anything with health or plus to max health would be fantastic. Plus to toughness for even more health if you feel like you need it or is the only thing you have been able to find. All resistances, material resistances, occult resistances, elemental, basically anything to resistances is a definite yes. Health regeneration, attack speed, agility, life leech, shadow damage added to attacks, yes. Sacred damage added to attacks, definitely. Any flat damage added to attacks will help if you can't get exactly what you need. Status ailment chance, and specifically occult status ailment chance. The rings I'm only using for the plus to agility and attack speed score. I would prefer to have socketed rings with aetheryte gems inserted for more movement speed. Yeah, I just haven't found a better belt yet, but again would prefer one that is socketed so I could put another 5% movement speed in there as well. The gloves, well, they just add some damage and some agility, but that cooldown reduction to your dash is a lot of fun, and if you take the cooldown reduction node on the skill tree and then use Mark of Impurity to improvise the AoE damage, then you pretty much have your Dagger dash build back. And Genesis. When an enemy is afflicted with stacks of shaded, cast Bulwark of Dawn on their location that provide AoE healing for you and your allies. Now, I personally don't care about this one so much, and the healing from that Bulwark is pretty underwhelming at the moment, but when an enemy is afflicted with stacks of weakness, unleash a Shadow Nova that deals AoE shadow damage. That is what I wanted to experiment with and what this entire build was really focused on. The plus 213 to max health and all resistances is very nice as well. However, like I already said, this build has evolved beyond the Shadow Novas and is now more focused on being able to apply 5 ailment stacks of 2 different damage types as quickly as possible to then benefit from that damage boost. So this helmet is no longer a must-have item to make the build work properly. However, it does also have that increased chance to apply weakness and or shaded, so that, plus the survivability from the health resistances and force shield, make this probably the best helmet to use anyways. Alright, let's take a look at the Gate of Fates, starting in Soldier and grabbing melee weapon damage and attack damage from the first 4 nodes. It's not a crit build, so I don't really care about the crit stuff, and movement speed. Then over to Sentinel for some more melee weapon damage and attack damage. Movement speed and increased attack speed, and up into Kabbalist for some status ailment chance, plus to max stacks, and when applying ailments, more stacks are applied to the enemy, other forms of damage are less potent. So now this one here, and this one over right here, when applying an ailment, there is a chance to double the number of ailment stacks that are applied. Those two are going to be crucial to applying 5 stacks as quickly as possible to then gain that 75% damage boost. Now, this one here, hits can usually only apply 1 ailment type. Now, 2 different ailments can be applied with the same hit. This one will be crucial to doubling that damage boost by allowing you to now apply 5 stacks of 2 different damage types as quickly as possible. We will also be picking up some more status ailment chance, some wisdom, more ailment chance, and increased stack duration, all resistances, more stack duration, and on up just to get to killing an enemy grants 15% damage for each ailment stack on that enemy, up to 5 stacks per damage type. Okay, and then over into Warmonger for max health and health regeneration, increased damage for each enemy within melee range, maximum health, 1, 2, 3 to attack damage, melee weapon damage and attack damage, 1, 2, 3 to melee weapon damage, material damage and attack speed, and the more rage you have, the more damage you deal. And that is it. However, this one here, movement speed, and this one here, maximum health, are just personal preference, and you can invest those 2 points anywhere you feel it's needed. And the skills. Now, I mostly just use my default attack to deal damage, which is why I took the more rage you have, the more damage you deal, but we also got Phantom Blades, modified to have increased damage, increased area of effect, can hold 1 additional charge, and projectile becomes a bola that roots enemies. Mark of Impurity, modified as marked enemies are more vulnerable. Enemies killed while under the effect explode and deal damage based on the target's max health in an area around them. And Mark of Impurity spreads to surrounding units on the death of the target. Wings of Ishmir, modified to have increased flight speed, stuns on impact, converts base physical damage to sacred damage with increased chance of applying weakness, and increased damage. Sovereign Shout, modified to grant bonus all resistance per enemy hit by the shout. Enemies hit by the shout gain stacks of weakness, increases the duration of the buffs granted by this skill, and increases the effectiveness of all buffs granted by this skill and other skills. And you may have noticed that Anvil's Woe is also on my skill bar, but I don't ever really use it. It doesn't do enough damage in my opinion to be worth the rage cost, and since this build does more damage with the more rage you have built up, a rage dumping skill like Anvil's Woe is entirely counterproductive to the entire playstyle. I mean, unless it's going to drop something like a 40k hit for you, then it might be worth it, but it doesn't come close to that, not even with a charge up modifier that grants increased damage. On the buggy side of things, I think I've had my fill of Anvil's Woe for the moment. I cannot replicate this on command yet, but it has happened to me more than once. Each time I'm surrounded by enemies using Anvil's Woe, and at some point it stops responding right in the middle of the attack animation. My character gets completely frozen in that position, just standing there holding a two-handed hammer over his head, until I either jump out of the group and it resets everything back to being fine now, or if I dodge roll out of the group, occasionally it resets back to normal, but every once in a while it resets with the hammer animation still out. In my curiosity, I found that not only could I run the entire dungeon like this, but going through a portal into the next area did not clear the VFX, or the animation, or whatever it is you personally prefer to call whatever the hell we are looking at right now. So not only did going through the red portals not reset it, but going through the blue one back to town still did not fix it. So I just kept running more dungeons, and I spent an entire night just grinding with my new god hammer. Eventually, exiting the game to the main menu and then just logging back into that character cleared the hammer visual, and as I implied a minute ago, I have recently been trying to replicate it on command so that I can then send a very nicely detailed report to Wolcen Studios about it. Hopefully that will make it much easier for them to pinpoint exactly what is going on. But alright, I hope you're all having fun and just enjoying yourselves. Until next time everyone, take it easy, and if you are new around here then please don't forget to smash that subscribe button to stay tuned for more builds, more bugs, and as always more news about further development of the game and of course the next big content patch. So don't forget to ding that bell if you would like to be notified when new videos drop, and hopefully I will catch you all again next time.